Hello and welcome everybody to Fight Legends Dev Update. I'm Sean S. Porter. As always, I am joined by our Dizzley in-house dev. How are you doing today, sir?
Excellent, excellent. How are you?
Oh, doing good as always, man. So many exciting things. Again, some of them we can talk about, some of them we can't, but we're gonna dive into the ones that we can, and we're gonna have a little bit of visual stuff, more chatting this week. But that's because we are hard at work with a new trailer that's very important to the whole project. And tell us a little bit more about that trailer. And just from I was looking at the stages, and I was wondering because earlier I had seen a little sneak peek, and I saw that we were going through all the stages. Will all the stages be highlighted in this? I mean, all the current ones that we've seen the art for.
Well, not entirely all of them, but definitely
Okay.
most of them. Like we've got, obviously, we wanted to show them off, but we had to come up with a creative way to show them off. So
Right.
I think it actually turned out really well, personally. I kind of had an idea of like how we could sequence them so that they sort of like blend together quite well. And I think it's going to be like a fast-paced sort of action trailer. And I think that it's going to turn out really well. We're getting the video editing done on it next week, I believe, and then we can start to release it hopefully with as we go through our IDO sort of month.
Right. Now, are we going to see will there be fighting going on between two of the characters in there?
There will be fight. Yeah, there will be fighting present.
Oh man, that's
It
gonna be.
wouldn't be much of a fight game without fighting
Yeah.
with the
Well,
trailer.
I know that we've seen Ross doing like kata and stuff like that. So I wasn't sure if we'd see if it would be Ross on Ross action, or if we're going to throw in one of the new characters, or what. So yeah, very
Oh,
excited to see.
surprise, surprise.
I know. Well, I love those stages, and so while we're doing that, that's kind of putting some other stuff on the back burner. But eventually, we are going to be bringing up. We're making a shift. Like last week, we were talking a little bit about the Bob Sapp sculpt, but now we're actually gonna. Once we get the chance, we're gonna be turning our attention more to the Briggs sculpt, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. So we've there's a couple of different things that we want to test out in relation to Bob and his implementation in the game. So we've basically got to a certain point where we're saying we're going to pause the sculpt and we're going to move over to the Briggs sculpt, like you said,
Right.
and just start that because technically there is nothing because of the way that the process works with sculpting until you're ready to like turn it down into the low poly version. You can play around with the sculpt as much as possible. It's just you're playing with clay,
Right.
and then we can get them to at least a certain degree that then we can start playing around with them, enhancing them the way that we want to enhance them. So you're not losing any time if you keep swapping and making the sculpts because we're eventually going to have that process done anyway.
Okay. And just a little bit about the Shannon. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about how he's going to have maybe that cannon power punch. We're seeing a little bit on some of the concept art. We're already starting to see the wires and stuff like that. Is that something that eventually that's will be implemented later on, right? Like I know with Nyx, we saw her get into the Unity, and then they started
Mhm.
working on those little more details, right?
Yeah. So with, for example, next, we're actually about to start setting up our rig, which, like you say, will include all of those small bits and pieces. So the way that rigs work, without going into like hyper detail with it, but it's basically a control mechanism that the animator can use to turn everything around and to make it actuate without it breaking the model or anything like that.
Right.
Sometimes you actually have to intentionally break the model for certain things, but
Okay.
yeah, Nyx will actually have a bunch of actuating parts about her arm and leg. So that's just requires a little bit more finesse with the rig than you typically would see. And Shannon will be the same, but it probably be a bit simpler than Nyx because of the way that his functions work. But we're still sort of trying to define the style, the design of the characters, their personalities, and then how
Right.
that would be actually implemented with combat in the engine. So that'll actually change how the rigging is set up. That'll change how the model is. So we have to sort of make those adjustments as we go.
So are you able to are you able to work on both the sculpting and the rigging at the same time, or do we have one person on that job right now?
Good question. Typically, we don't have them both happening at exactly the same time. You can start to set up a rig, like with Ross when before we had his facial rigging done as like a separate rigging process. So we started rigging the first part, then we started rigging once his facial features were done.
Right.
So you can kind of step it up like that, but typically, the way that the pipeline works is that you would have the character design complete to a point where you know that they're finished. There won't be any more updates, and they're working on just on texture work, and then the rigging can be set up and defined. Because really, the mesh can't change all that much. Otherwise, you have to go back and redefine the rig with the mesh.
Right. Okay. I get what you're saying. So it's a
Yep.
little bit of a streamlined situation.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Cool. Well, I've heard, speaking on designs, that we're getting a little bit of feedback for the first time from some awesome advisors. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how that's going.
Yep. Yeah, so basically every week we put together some like a proposal, and because our advisors are actually a different language, it's Japanese, we actually have to get that translated as well in-house, and then we bring it to them, have them give their feedback, like we have real-time discussion with translation, and then we get that retranslated back so that we can have all the feedback that we can really process. So it's a lengthy process, and it does take some time. So we're actually going to be looking into hiring some people to do that as like a full-time job for us, like transcribing, basically.
Right.
Translation transcribing. I am actually learning Japanese currently, but it obviously is not at the pace that I need to be fluent yet.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. Well, that's good that you're working on it, though. Slow and steady. Eventually, we're going to visit.
In a couple of years, I'll be able to fully speak with them, and I think that this relationship is going to last the time that this project is going to take. It's going to take us years,
right,
to really see this project
come
into its vision. So, yeah, I'm in it for the long haul.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, as we all are. Next, we've got in-game adjustments. We've got actually a video to go with this. So tell us a little bit about what we're saying. Subtle, but huge when it comes to like fight game nerds, right? People are going to notice this. This is all towards like quality of life stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically just switching a couple of different things. In my time as part of my job, I do research into game feel, into what other games do, what they don't do, like how we should go about implementing it ourselves. And as part of that, it's just different things like camera tweaking. So you're tweaking the camera, you're changing the speeds, you're changing the angles, you're trying to kind of like reframe everything. You're figuring out the jump heights and distances and the time it takes for the camera to move. You're implementing just the small things as well. Like it's a combat prototype, so it'll change quickly, but I want to still make it feel as good as possible, and we want people to be able to actually play this as a in a tournament setting locally when we hold small tournaments and things. So I want to make it feel as good as possible. So we're trying to add small VFX in there as well, like striking VFX and just like the impactful, the things that make a game feel weighty, the things that in game development we call it juice. It's basically adding the cool things at the end that are really tie it together and actually make it feel more cohesive as a playable game. So yeah, those things that you're probably seeing on the screen right now are those kinds of small adjustments that get made from literally week to week as I start to add them and I have the time to do so.
Awesome. Well, I was wondering, because you're seeing them dart, and the darts, of course, really do look nice and snappy. I assume that's going to help obviously, when it comes to certain types of players, right? Someone that is, when it comes to defensive mode and maneuvers, it's definitely going to help, right now for that. And of course, since we are, like you said, building towards esports tournaments sooner rather than later, of course, all that sort of thing is going to be huge when it comes to competitive play. So.
Right. And also that's another thing I was just working on. I haven't shown it here and it's not complete yet, but just like even the blocking animation, the VFX when the blocking happens, the pause timings of when your strikes occur, the character shaking, the camera shake, those kinds of little things, they all make a really big impact to even competitive play, how the feedback for the players getting it.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, and then finally we're working on we got two different things that we're working on as far as like UI, I guess. One is the launcher. Tell us a little bit more about what's going on with our launcher.
So we've basically it's nearing feature complete. We've got a few little quality things that need to be changed, but it's pretty much just the UI, how it's displayed.
Okay.
Once we get that all like figured out, smoothed up nicely, we'll release a version 1 of the launcher. It might still be a bit rough around the edges, but we'll be constantly updating that, and it has self-updater itself, so we can push an update. Once it opens, it'll automatically update the launcher itself. Right. So we've even got that sort of set up, and then everything will be using our new backend, and we'll be uploading the newest builds of the game to it as well. So we'll be completely removed from our previous backend, which has caused a few little headaches our developers. It was sort of a temporary solution we were setting up just so that we could get out there as fast as possible for our players.
Right.
But now we're sort of like, this is our home now. It's a long-term solution we've set up in, so it'll feel a lot better, a lot smoother. Everything's under one roof as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge when it comes to that. And that's is that what the AWS move, or is that
AWS move
okay.
from we were previously on Google Firebase, but we've moved to AWS. But basically it'll help our servers as well, because eventually once we set up as we're setting up our servers, which is something's happening basically right now, is that when the server gets spun up, it's dynamic, and we can have it placed in continents all over the world, which will help with bandwidth. It'll help with cost, because if a server's not currently needed, it won't be running.
Right.
Basically, it's part of the load balancing, so it'll keep spinning up as many servers and spinning down the servers as we need.
Interesting. All right. Nice. And then let's talk a little bit about what Val's working on with the website, or be more specific. What part of the site is he working on here?
Yeah,
we're taking a look at some of the stuff here.
So he's basically working on the app, which will be where everybody will interact and engage with our NFTs, inventory. Our Bloody Face holders will now sign up and register for the new backend, because we'll have to get everybody to reconnect their wallets and re-sign up.
Right.
Which isn't a huge deal. It's going to be even smoother and than before.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, we're setting this up so that it's just everything is in one place. You can see everything directly. You don't have to, once you buy your stuff, you don't have to go over to OpenSea to see where it is. It'll show up directly, show you if they're on the connected wallet. And we're just trying to make it as streamlined as possible, as much as possible. We've had feedback from our community that a few things are a little bit confusing, unnecessarily, obviously, because we can make that decision as a design choice. So we've decided to just try to just make it as one button smooth as possible.
Right.
A lot of the people, I think, like that. You don't want to have something pop up and you're kind of like, what's going on here?
I agree.
We're just basically trying to just make it as smooth and easy as possible. And then we can start expanding that. So then the marketplace will, version 2 will be the marketplace will come online, and you'll be able to put your NFTs up for sale, or trade them with other players, or buy NFTs and things like that. So, and that'll just keep expanding all the way through our game development process as we keep adding more and more and more, and everything starts to actually be used in game and everything.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of those screenshots is mobile. We're always working on mobile-friendly versions of everything. And, so that's very cool. It's looking great, and I see that's in the background of some of these screenshots that was shared. We were seeing some of the cool stage angles, and even the Bloody Faces stage, which is showing up right now.
Yep.
So that's very cool. And anyone, of course, can go to bloodyfaces.io and purchase one right now. You're going to have access to the early playable demo right away. And there's updates all the time, right? Definitely by week, there's different updates. You can catch them live here to learn all about them. And there's also going to be whitelist spots for all of our NFT drops for our Bloody Faces holders. And they're going to have exclusive access to a clubhouse and a marketplace that no one else will. Only 3,333 people. Well, unless you want to buy more than one, which you can buy up to 3. So there's always that. Why not?
Even more exclusive.
Absolutely. Heck yeah. All right. Well, that's all we have for tonight, Dizzley. Thank you very much for hanging out with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and next week we're gonna ramp up the live aspect of things, try and get people coming in. So we're gonna look to give away some stuff and really build it up. Now that we've kind of ironed this out, they're going real smooth. Everything looks great, and we're getting good engagement and views. So yeah, the next step is to get people in here chatting with us, maybe asking some questions, and we're gonna have a lot more visual stuff to share next week, aren't we?
We should have a few more visual things, as well as potentially we might even have a sneak peek of the game trailer. So if all goes well, I'm not promising anything, but we might. Oh,
that's exciting! I'm holding you to it. Mark it. We're at 30 minutes in. Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. Dizzley, thank you again so much. Have a good rest. I believe it's your Friday now, so going into the weekend, have a great one, and we'll talk to you next week, man.
Awesome.
All right,
see you
cheers.
later, mate.